Okay, in this video we are comparing the two latest Tracfone Androids to the Tracfone Android service. On the left here we have the LG Ultimate 2. This one retails for $129.99. On the right hand side we have the Alcatel One Touch Pop Icon. This one retails for $149.99. Now right off the bat you can see the main difference between both of these phones is the size. The Ultimate 2 here on the left has a 4.5-inch screen, while the Pop Icon has a 5-inch screen. Now, other than that, and other than the fact that the operating system on the Pop Icon here has a few extras that you don't typically get on an Android, these phones are essentially identical in terms of specs. Both of these phones come with 5-megapixel digital cameras and LED flashes. Both of them have a front-facing camera, though the LG Ultimate here on the left actually has higher resolution on the front camera. This one's got, the Ultimate 2 has a 1.3 megapixel, while this one only has a 0.3 megapixel. Both of these phones, can't remember if I mentioned it, but both of these phones have 1.2 gig quad-core processors, and both of these come with Android 4.4. Now, as far as the calling area is concerned, both of these phones are again identical because both of these are CDMA devices. Here's the box for the Alcatel. As you can see, CDMA. There's the little coverage map. Here's the Ultimate 2, again CDMA, and the same coverage map. Again, both of these phones, I should mention, are 3G. Both 3G. So in terms of data speeds and coverage, both phones are identical. And again, unless you're looking for a large form factor phone, there's no real difference between both of these. Now, as you can see, this one's got the 5-inch screen, so it's much larger. But other than that, I will show you one difference between these, which may be significant to some, probably not most, for sure not any seasoned Android user probably cares about this feature. But if you're someone who wants to get a smartphone for the first time, or is thinking about getting a smartphone for the first time, they've kind of added a feature on this Alcatel device that's kind of geared towards those people. And they've basically added this simple mode, which you can turn on, and it kind of makes navigation on the phone a whole lot easier. The icons get a whole lot bigger and easy to read. So I don't know if they had maybe some demand for this phone, or maybe people asking for something like this from them, but this phone does have this special feature that you do not get on any other Tracfone. So as you can see, the icons are much larger, and everything is kind of reduced to 3 screens. Here you would have and add your contacts. This is kind of like your base home screen where you would get to the phone and your text messaging. And this is kind of that menu screen that you would get on the normal interface, on the normal Android interface. Here they've made it so that all the apps are stacked so that you can simply just scroll through them, kind of like a contacts list. So that's the difference between both of these phones, that and the size, I would say. This special little simple feature, this simple mode feature that you don't get on the Ultimate 2. Of course, it works just fine in standard mode, and as you can see, we have it in standard mode, and then everything works as expected. Now, on the last thing I'll do is I'll just go ahead and measure both of these phones so you get an idea of the size difference. This is the larger of the two. This is the 5-inch screen measured diagonally. And as you can see here, that screen is indeed around 5 inches. The height on this total height is about 5.5. Total width is almost 3 inches, a little bit less than that. And both of the phones are about the same thickness, or they come in at 0.37, 0.38, as you can see there. Now the Ultimate 2, this one has a 4.5-inch screen measured diagonally, as you can see. The width is more respectable, 2.5 inches, much smaller. And the height comes in at 5 inches. And lastly, the thickness, we get about the same, 0.37 or so. One other thing I kind of want to touch on is kind of the design on these phones. The Alcatel has a really basic all black design. There's no special trim on this thing. It's all, the back is kind of a flat black with that kind of rubberized feel to it. The front has like a satin black bezel around it, and that's all there really is to it. Now both of the power and lock, the volume and the lock button are on the right hand side on the Alcatel, but everything else is the same on both of these phones. So you get the headphone jack on the top and the charge port on the bottom. Now if we go look at the Ultimate 2, this one has a little bit of a fancier design, if you will. Here you get an aluminum look trim going all the way around the phone, which I really like. Makes it look a little bit more sophisticated, maybe a little bit more expensive than it really is. And then on the back you get this kind of look, this kind of cool looking battery cover with kind of that pixelated look that kind of changes as you kind of move it around. So that's pretty cool. Now another cool thing on this one is this bottom LED push button. What's cool about it is that it turns different colors depending on different functions. So for example, there you saw it flashes green periodically as the phone is in lock mode. But when you get a phone call, it does one thing. When your alarm goes off, it does another thing. So it has different lights that it lights up as depending on the functionality. So I think that about covers the physical differences between these. And the last thing, I know I've said I was going to say the last thing, but this is the last thing that I will mention on these phones, and that is the sound quality, which is kind of important to me. I don't know about the rest of you, but on this phone, the Alcatel phone, the sound quality is quite excellent, which I'll demo real quick. So you probably don't get a good idea on the video, but it's got excellent sound quality to it. It does not emit that kind of tinny sound that you kind of get in some of these other low-end phones. This one has a really strong sound, and it does not sound cheap in the least. Now the speaker is right there. It's a good size speaker. It's at the bottom. I won't demo this one just because this one sounds just like every other low-end phone. The speaker is down here, and you can see the size of it. It's tiny, so it does have that kind of tinny, metal can sound to it. So that's the last thing I'll talk about on these phones. So that wraps up this video. If you were to ask me, and I would say which phone would I go for, I would probably go with the LG Ultimate 2, simply because I like the size. It falls under that kind of perfectly sized category with a 4.5-inch screen. I also found it to be just a little bit faster than the Alcatel phone. So for my money, which would be $129.99, I would definitely go with the LG Ultimate 2. I think it's a better value. But if you want a large screen device, then there's no other Tracfone Android at this time other than this Alcatel device. It too is a fine device, and you do get that great sound quality, but it is $149.99, so you do pay an extra 20 bucks for the screen size, even though pretty much all other specs are exactly the same between both these phones.